All right, there we go. Katina, you want to take it
Yes,
away?
yes. Good evening, everyone. Like Letitia said, we are in week 6, if you can believe it. Wow, we've been together for 6 weeks and we have 2 more to go. And I'm excited for the last session, which will be our practicum presentations. So I know we have a few more people trickling in, but we want to get started to respect time and with our wonderful presenters on tonight. So Crystal, if you could bring up the slides. And if I haven't already said good evening, good evening, good evening, and good evening. All right, so tonight's agenda, next slide. All right, tonight's agenda, we're focusing on Mount Vernon District HOAs and councils, which could include a plethora of different opportunities for civic engagement. But we've identified some wonderful presenters on tonight that we think will be very beneficial in the work that you do or that you may be interested in. So tonight we have Mary Payton for the South County Task Force will be starting us off tonight with her presentation on the South County Task Force. Then moving right along, we have Mary Lipsey, who is a Board Authorities Commission member, and she's also part of the Historical Marker Project. She'll be giving us some information on the collection of stories, that project that has started in collaboration with the county and FCPS. And then moving right along, we're going to have Katharine Ward, who's with the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Association, and she'll be giving some information about the organization that she's a part of and the opportunities for you all as residents. And then we have Ivana Escobar, who is with United Community. She is the strategic manager for Community Plus, which is an umbrella, is a tier umbrella under the umbrella of Opportunity Neighborhoods, or above the tier for Opportunity Neighborhoods. So she's going to be giving some information about Community Plus and the opportunities that may present for you and your interests. And then we have part of our community engagement and leadership development series. Tonight will be our last one for community engagement and leadership development. This will be number 4. And we just have an opportunity to share with you on tips on community outreach strategies to diverse communities. So we'll be sharing that on this evening. Again, thank you guys for joining tonight. To next week's session, which will be on transportation, that will be a huge one. So definitely want you to make sure that you join next week, as we will end up some valuable information in regards to transportation. And we will have opportunity to have one last breakout sessions just to make sure we touch base with everyone. And I'll be sending out information in regards to the practicum, just some follow-up questions just for you to think about as you're trying to culminate your presentation, whatever, based upon your area that you have chosen. Also want to just mention that we did secure a spot for our practicum presentation graduation appreciation participation ceremony, which will be on Thursday, June 9th, and that will be at the original Mount Vernon High School. I will be sending out that information tomorrow. And what I will need from each one of you is that if you are attending, and we're going to be inviting staff as well as presenters, but due to COVID and spacing, it would just be only limited to our participants, which is you all that have been participating in the neighborhood college. But we will be doing it out at original Mount Vernon High School. It is accessible in regards to, it does have a ramp and it does have an elevator. So we will be doing it in the multipurpose room, and I will be sending it out an email. So what I need for you to do is to respond to let me know that you will be attending, because we do have some goodies for you. We'll have some swag bags, and we'll have some food and some refreshments and desserts. So when I send out the email, please make sure that you respond to let me know that you will be in attendance in person. And if you have any other challenges, just let me know. But we do anticipate everyone coming together just to see everyone's faces, and then being able to share in the opportunity of the practicum presentations that you all have worked so hard on. First, before we get started, I'll pass it back over to Letitia.
So thanks, Katina. I see that Christine is with us from Supervisor Stork's office. So wanted to introduce her. Christine, you want to say anything?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Letitia. I'm happy to be here tonight. So happy to see so many familiar faces and also new faces. This was a really important initiative for Supervisor Stork to give our community an opportunity to get to do this and learn about our neighborhoods and what we do for community engagement and outreach. And tonight you've got some really great presenters and some very, very active neighborhood advocates that really do a lot for the community in so many ways. And I know we engage with them all the time. But you've got a great lineup tonight. So I know our my team, and I think Alex is on here as well. We've been trying to have each person on the team, listen into the various meetings, and I know we've all enjoyed it. And our Shirley Short is also on here, who's a major volunteer in our office. And as long as Shirley has been with us, she keeps telling me every time she's in these meetings, she learns just so much more. So you guys are doing a great job and appreciate what you're doing, and happy to be listening in tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
All right, Katina.
All right. And then Christine, feel free and put it in the chat, or when there's question and answer time, if anyone is interested, or if you know of any other opportunities, because I know with the BAC, you guys are probably always looking for opportunities for residents to come engage as well. So, all right. Okay. So Mary Payton, you are up first.
Hey, thank you, Katina. Hi, I'm Mary Payton. I'm the chair of the South County Task Force, and I'm going to give you a little bit history of this 47-year-old advocacy organization in the Route 1 corridor and how it's changed over time along with the changing needs. Next slide. So we just, although we were founded in 1975, we just got our bylaws in 2018 because the original founder was totally against bylaws. And we defined at that time the purpose of the task force as to improve the quality of life and promote social and racial equity in the Richmond Highway corridor and the surrounding magisterial districts, which is Mount Vernon and Lee. The task force does that by setting priorities and advocating for them, and by providing educational opportunities, communicating with community members and county officials, collaborating and networking with other organizations, and encouraging community action, which has been more and more a part of our repertoire in the last several years. Next one. Our founder was Ann Andrews, 1975. Ann passed away in December, where we've honored her with a meeting, and there's another meeting, another tribute to her coming up in June. And so I want to tell a little bit about her first. I'll switch over to what we're doing now. Next one. When Ann founded the task force, she co-founded it with a Lee supervisor, who was about 3 or 4 supervisors ago, and they co-chaired the task force. And the way it was set up, she saw it as a way for the county government and the nonprofit service providers and citizens and residents of the area to discuss the needs and provide resources to low-income residents on Route 1, mainly related to health and human services, homelessness, and affordable housing. And there were other efforts going on around that time by some faith communities, but the county human services department was not very well developed yet at that point. Ann would hold open meetings with county officials and staff and nonprofit leaders and advocates, and they were always seated in a circle, and they would discuss ideas and issues and how to solve problems. And then Ann always followed that up with lots of behind the scenes advocacy. That was her style, was to kind of make sure things got done in whatever way necessary. And the tributes to her recently at a Zoom meeting, Jerry Conley, a congressman, called her a fierce advocate and voice for the community, and what a difference she made in people's lives. Supervisor Board Chair Jeff McKay said she was the toughest person he ever met, as well as the one with the biggest heart. And Pam Mitchell, recently retired from New Hope Housing, said Ann was successful not only because she was relentless, but also because she was right. And Ann's been a great model for us in the task force. And she wasn't always in the front of everything, but she was definitely driving the bus. Next slide. During her time, Ann and South County Task Force, they worked to establish the first homeless shelter in the area, which was the Monlock House, with a task force member, Eleanor Kennedy, who later got the county to fund a larger center at the, I know it's now called the Eleanor Kennedy Shelter, which is now being replaced with a new shelter. And she also started up New Hope Housing. Ann and the task force helped establish the health department's community health care network that focused on healthcare for low income and uninsured residents, and was later replaced by neighborhood health under the Obamacare rules. Ann strengthened the Citizens Advisory Board to the Gartland Center, which addresses mental health care. She was very involved in mental health and substance abuse services. And she also famously chaired a committee to evaluate keeping the Mount Vernon Hospital open. And she's credited with leading that committee and making a final presentation that kind of turned the decision from the hospital being closed down to remaining open. Next. So after, in the 80s up to like 2015, where I showed up, county funding became more established for human services. At the South County Task Force started organizing annual budget advocacy events where we line up a whole bunch of speakers to go and advocate for certain human services issues. There was also a large increase in immigration. In this area, quite a lot of Latinos. And there became different issues of immigration rights, housing. The mobile home parks became largely Latino communities. And development was starting to be envisioned for Route 1, which had always been sort of a county backwater. Now there was a new plan coming along that would develop this area in a kind of modern, transit-oriented fashion. Next slide. So Ann retired in 2016. She went off to the land of Green Springs and organized people over there. And the task force took a little different turn and became more like other organizations with bylaws and a steering committee and election. We decided to partner a lot with other organizations to get things done. One was Ventures in Community, which is a local faith-based group of faith communities and nonprofits, and also with the Healthy Fairfax Communities Coalition, which is a group of growth, environmental, affordable housing, and transit groups that is countywide and focuses a lot on land use planning. We also became more oriented towards social justice and encouraged community organizing in Route 1. Next. So we had a meeting that was actually sponsored by the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance with local groups such as us and Good Shepherd and New Hope and United Community. This was in 2019, and it's at Bethlehem Baptist Church. We invited lots and lots of people, and it was a community conversation for people to share their vision of the Hybla Valley, Gum Springs area as the BART corridor develops. And that was a very good first meeting. And people talked about what they liked about their communities and, what problems they were having. And it was very evident from that meeting that people really loved their communities and had very strong attachments to them. And there are several communities. It's not one low-income community. There's Gum Spring, which is not really entirely low income, although it has some low-income housing. There was the Buckman Road Loop. There's the Audubon Mobile Home Park, Harmony Place. There's different areas, both apartments and mobile home parks and homes that are along Route 1 that have been there for a long time, but that may have some issues with gentrification as Embark comes through. Next slide. So we realized some of the people at that meeting found out about Embark for the first time, and they had missed the 42 public meetings that were held by the Planning Commission because they weren't really held in their neighborhoods. They were kind of announced through a traditional, like, go back for a minute. They were, no, back. You're going forward. Okay, so they found out about Embark. A lot of people from Audubon especially found out about Embark at that meeting, and they were kind of shocked, and they saw that as a very existential threat to their community, that they could very easily be displaced by gentrification. So next slide. And what we realized was that it's really time for the community to define its own issues and advocate for them, and that we were an ally, we were an assistant, we could help them with alerting them to issues, with promoting things to a public level, to getting newspaper publicity, to getting attention at the state or rather county level, but that we really needed an organized community. So we decided to partner with local organizing groups, and we also added some community members to our steering committee so they could have a voice in our decisions. Next slide. And we also adopted the issues that came out of that meeting in September 2019, the second community conversations meeting, as kind of our agenda. And that was the issues that the community members brought up. That was avoiding displacement from gentrification, a lot of issues around safety from crime and pedestrian safety, more affordable housing, job training, better wages, childcare, better school academic achievement, mental health care, substance abuse services, recreational and cultural activities for the youth, and more frequent and varied transit options. So those are the issues that we've been following along. And then we also work with a great many other groups that are going on at the county level. The county has a task force for just about everything. And I work on the bus rapid transit task force and the Fairfax County active transport outreach and the Affordable Housing Advisory Council and manufactured house, on and on. So we have a seat at these other groups that talk about what the county is planning, and we're able to take that information back to the community and talk about it with the community advocates and figure out how they can raise their voice level of planning and issues at the political level. Okay, next slide. And these are some of the things we've worked on over the last, since this, I guess, back to 2018. We did a series of panel decisions on healthcare, which was a big issue at that time. And we couldn't really figure out who did what in healthcare. This was before Obamacare. And we ended up developing a healthcare guide to the different services that were available, depending on what you needed, where you would go to get it. It was very confusing. And we came up with a key, like a bird key, if you have this and you need that and you're a family and you have no insurance, then call this number. So we came out with these guides in 2018 and in 2020, and we distributed them through a lot of the caseworkers along Route 1 and through the county at the building. And I think it really helped people to find their way into healthcare systems that they could afford and benefit from. And we worked very closely with all the providers, mainly neighborhood health, when they became into existence and started kind of taking over a lot of the healthcare. Safety and security was a big issue, and we've worked with Gum Springs community, especially with the Route 1 pedestrian fatalities, and advocating for more of a Main Street approach to Route 1 rather than a fast thoroughfare that takes people through the community rather than serving the community. And we've had meetings with the new police chief and participated in the Gum Springs issues during the summer of 2020. So that's been a continuing issue, and we've partnered with other people mainly on that one. Next slide. We've also advocated for better facilities for residents, poor residents. We've advocated for a new homeless shelter to replace the very old and worn out Eleanor Kennedy shelter, which is on Fort Belvoir and is really not really designed for human beings, but a new shelter will now be built, co-located with a firehouse at Beacon Hill Road and Route 1. And we also advocated for the location of the Lorton Community Action Center with the library at a central location in Lorton. And other things as they come out, we try to form a voice that speaks at the local level for the needs of the lower income community who often are not involved in land use decisions. Next slide. We've also worked with the tenant organizations to help the mobile home communities. There's probably somewhere near 300 families and several mobile home parks along Route 1 that are feel very threatened by possible displacement by development. And we're working with community organizers, with the residents themselves, and with the lead district supervisor's office, and trying to get mobile home parks brought up to standard to be safer and better living conditions, and also to find ways that they can continue to offer very affordable housing to a large number of families in our area. Okay, next one. And we're also promoting county policy to include renters and mobile homeowners in land use decisions. About 30% of the Fairfax County residents are renters, and the state law requires that only landowners be notified when there's a development going up, either around them or on them. And we think that's the state law, but we think Fairfax County can go beyond that and also include the renters and the mobile homeowners. You see on the left there's a map. This is the new comprehensive plan that was proposed and accepted and adopted in 2017. You see those little tiny rectangles, little white rectangles, that's the Pendant mobile home park. And that mobile home park is envisioned in that comp plan as being pretty much disappeared, and the new roads being put in and new buildings being put in there at about 90 dwelling units per acre, 7-story buildings, the new developments going in right next door now. And the comp plan calls for similar developments at the mobile home park and also at the Walmart at Pendant. All that would be developed as part of a bus rapid transit system. And our position is that the mobile homeowners and the renters in any place that's being developed like that really need to have a seat at the table. The development process needs to look at who benefits and who is harmed by a development and who is at the table. Those are the requirements from One Fairfax policy that we consider when we're doing a project or program, and we would also extend that to a development. So we are pushing the Planning Commission to adopt a policy that would include all Fairfax County residents in land use discussions in their area. Next slide. So if you want to see any of our recent meetings, we have a YouTube channel, and you can see there some of the meetings that we've had, the ones that were Zoom meetings. As our list of our steering committee. One issue I didn't mention that our deputy chair, Larissa Krause, is very involved in is the workforce education development. She and her company, she is the CEO of Melwood, which is a company and institution in Maryland that deals with developmentally disabled people and finds them jobs and supportive services. And that institution won the bid to do the workforce development programming at the new Lee Community Center. And we're very excited about that. And we think that'll be a really big boost to the area and something that the residents have called for. So you can contact me at my very simple email, mary.payton@gmail.com. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Looks like we might have some questions in the chat. Let's
Hey, Robert,
see.
I wrote one in the chat, but I'm happy to give one in real time in person. It's Mary, thanks so much for your presentation. My name is Brian Jacobs. I live in the Bellhaven area. I'm really interested when you said you spoke to the new police chief and you speak to law enforcement probably on a regular basis. I'd be interested to hear, what are your messages to law enforcement and what are your top concerns when you do speak with law enforcement?
We met with the new police chief when he came to Gum Springs. And I guess the question I asked him, he was talking about reforming police. I attended all the meetings at Gum Springs around the tasering event that happened shortly after the George Floyd killing, and there were many marches and demonstrations and whatnot. And my take on it was that really the police, from what I heard the Gum Spring residents expressing, was that there were very much harassment going on, very many unnecessary stops. All the Black men present practically reported incidents of where they had been stopped by police for not really any good reason. And that, and all of the women reported incidents where their sons had been stopped for not very good reasons. So despite all the basketball games between kids and cops and all the barbecues and all the things that have been going on with the Black pastors, it seemed like this harassment had been continuing for many, many years. And our position was that that really needed to stop, that was contributing to violence that was not necessary. And when the new police chief said he was going to reform how police were treating people and dealing with people on stops, my position was that needed not only to be part of the training, but also part of the incentive system in the force, such that people who had good records on having respectful stops got promoted, and people who harassed people when they stopped them for not good things like tinted windows. These things have been since outlawed by the legislature, but they were going on at the time. That they should not be promoted. I mean, that these things have to be part of the reward system in the police force in order to be effective.
Do not see any additional questions in the chat or any hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Robert. If you all have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Mary, as she's putting her contact information in the presentation. And as you know, you all will receive a copy of the presentation after tonight's session as well. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate you for providing us the information in regard to the South County Task Force. And are your meetings open to those who are interested in attending?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to resume meetings pretty soon. We had a hiatus for a while, and I'll send you an invitation when we start getting them going again, and you can pass it on to all the participants. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And if you do have any other further questions or thinking about anything else, please feel free to put it in the chat, and also you can send me an email, and I will share that with Mary as well. So that way we can get your questions answered. So, all right, thank you. And moving right along, next we have Mary Lipsey. Mary is going to give us some information on a historical project, and then some of the information in regards to her experience with the Board Authorities and Commission as a member, and in hopes that you might, it might spark an interest with you, and also provide an opportunity in case you are wondering what is the BAC, or what is entails in some of the project that she's going to be talking about. Mary?
Hi, thank you very much. I am Mary Lipsey. I tell people I'm a native of Fairfax County. I've actually My family moved here when I was 10 months old, so I do consider myself a native. Also a retired history teacher, which is probably why I'm so interested to be asked to join the History Commission. I joined in 2006. We are a group of 21 members, and we are appointed by our supervisors. So we have commissioners from each of the districts, and the mission of the History Commission is to help identify and document and also preserve the county's history. Through the years, we've begun to realize there has been, and it isn't just in Fairfax County, but all over the United States, one history that is taught and not others. And that we needed to really, encourage diversity and have students learn this. And it's an uphill battle. The last 2 years, we have been actually about 2.5 years now. We've been engaged in some special projects, but I want to tell you what we do year round. We do have a historical marker program, which is different from what I'm going to talk about in a minute. These are the roadside markers that are blue and gold around the county, and they are situated, throughout the entire county, but they are focusing on events or people or places throughout our history. We have an annual conference, which last year, our annual conference focused on Native Americans and African Americans. We are a participant in the Resident Curator program. This is a program that keeps historical homes in our county with a curator who goes in and protects the house and makes sure that it is taken care of. We have an awards program. We recognize people who are publishing about history or helping to preserve history. A publications grant for people that are wanting to publish their own documents or books on history. And we also have a website, and I always encourage people to go to our website because there are a lot of resources there. The one that people tend to go to a whole lot is the 1860 land map, because if you know your tax number for your home or residence, you can find out who owned the property in 1860. And it's just kind of a neat little thing to see, because in 1860, a lot of the land was the Fitzhugh Ravensworth tract, since that was 22,000 acres of Fairfax County. So we were, as history commissioners, tasked by the Board of Supervisors to do the Confederate names inventory. And I just want to talk about that a little bit, because that spurred us into the next initiative that we had begun about a year ago. We were asked to look at all assets in the county, building names, street names, post office names, road names, etc., and identify those that have a Confederate military attachment. Literally, we spent 6 months working on this and putting it all together. It's interesting that since it is published, it's out on our History Commission website, all 500 pages of it. People continue to ask me and say, why are you changing the names? And that was never what we were tasked to do. We were tasked to identify street names, but it is up to the communities, the people who live there, if they want to, change their names. You may have read recently that Fairfax City is looking into a community that has a lot of Mosby attachments. And so when we finished that, all of us realized that there's a history that really needs to be taught, and that's the African American communities and churches and schools in our Fairfax County. So we started our own inventory from, let's see, a year, almost over a year now. And we're really excited because what we did by district, we have gathered information about people, places, events, churches, schools, communities, historical markers, etc. And we've made templates about them. And going along with that, being the teacher in me, there are several high schools now that are teaching African-American history as an elective for students. And I said, well, what sources, what resources do these teachers have? And they said, well, we don't know. And so I took it upon myself, because I said, if I were a teacher, and if I grew up in Fairfax County and hardly know the history, how about those who have not lived in Fairfax County long? So I've made a general resource list and a research topic list. The research topic is specific to Fairfax County. It gives you sources of where you can find information of oral history interviews, books about communities, all sorts of stuff. The general resources goes out to like the Library of Virginia, the National Archives, other sources that talk about maybe Virginia, but also maybe Fairfax County. So right now it's on the Fairfax County History Commission website. It is a raw database. We call it raw data, but we were delighted that we worked starting in September with George Mason IT engineers, they're seniors. It's called a capstone project. And we said, we would like you to take our raw data and put it into a searchable item that people can, put in a word and find everything, publications, everything about it. And so they've graduated, but we still don't have it up yet. It's going to be up immediately, they tell us, but it is a searchable database taking everything that we had. They made interactive maps, so you can plug in Laurel Grove and it will show you on the map where Laurel Grove is located and other items around that. You can do a very advanced search, or you do a general search by districts. And so we were so excited because a professor from George Mason, who is IT person, said that this was hundreds of thousands of dollars of work that they did. And we're so delighted. At the Fenwick Library at George Mason is going to host this for us, so it'll have a permanent location, and we can continually to add to it. So we don't have to say it's stagnant, we can add more. As a result of that, the Supervisor Palchuk was also interested in a historical marker project. And Governor Northam had a project in Virginia asking students to suggest topics dealing with African Americans. And so I am the committee chair for the marker committee chair for the History Commission. And so I was asked and worked with other people, both teachers and neighboring community services and other organizations, to work on this historical marker project. It isn't finished yet, but I'll tell you how it evolved. We wanted all students in the county from K through 12, not just the public schools, but private schools, et cetera. Could be a Girl Scout troop, could be a Boy Scout troop, a church group, anyone, to make a submission of primarily a person is what we're finding is being submitted, of African-American importance here in Fairfax County. And the goal is to get a marker in each district. That is our goal. Right now, the voting committee has all the submissions, and they're going through and looking at them and making selections for that. Another part of the coming out of this whole idea was the collecting of stories. And at the community centers in the county, people are asked to go in and be interviewed. And, you know, people say, well, I haven't lived in Fairfax County but just 20 years or 10 years or whatever. But I tell everybody has a story, no matter how long you've lived in the county, because youth know nothing. You know, I mean, we need to preserve our stories and have it so that I tell people with understanding comes learning, and with learning comes empathy. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure our students are aware. I'm learning so much. I had never heard of Young's Village in Fort Belvoir, and it was named after an African-American military man, and it was an African-American community of military families who lived there. And it's no longer there. You know, the village was gone, but I thought this is something that students need to do. And I can't help but preach when I'm around young people. I spent a lot of time with helping with Eagle Scout projects. And I said, do you know that at one time there was not one high school for African Americans in Fairfax County? Not one. I said, if they wanted to go to school, they either had to go to Washington or Alexandria, live with relatives, or they went to Manassas Industrial School, spending hours on buses. They learned how to do their homework on the buses because that was the only school for all the kids. And then I said, then we finally got one high school in the county for the entire African-American population, and that was Luther Jackson. And I once called over to Luther Jackson. I said, do you teach your students about the history of that school? Oh, we have a showcase about it. I said, well, no, that's not what I asked. I said, do you teach them the history of the school? And they didn't quite like my question. But anyway, I just, you know, I just think it's so important that you start with the seed of the local and then work out to the national, you know, but you've got to understand what the community was and then go out to the state and to the United States. So we are encouraging people to collect stories. If you're shy, you don't want to be videotaped, they ask you to write them, but all of these are going to be preserved. Every submission that's made by a student is going to be preserved, whether it actually ends up in a marker or not. I said, we need to have this so that we can recognize what was important to these young people. And then also the school system has done project-based learning activities, and that's all online. So our goal is to continue to do this, and we're hoping this history marker project will continue. It may expand to other ethnic groups in the county, but we want to make sure that we capture this history. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions in the chat or any hands raised, but I do want to make sure everyone's aware that the websites you referenced have been placed in the chat.
Okay.
And Mary, for the collection of stories, are there there's still opportunities for people to go to
yes.
community
And
centers and the clubhouses can videotape their recordings, or if they want to write it?
Right. And all the information is on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have a hand raised now, though. Bindu?
Hi, Ms. Lips. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was wonderful, and thank you for doing this. As a history teacher, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about renaming, you know, like, I mean, this was history, Jefferson Davis Highway. How do you feel about the renaming of these roads, of these monuments, taking monuments down? How do you feel about that?
I'm glad I'm not teaching history right now. I'll say that, okay? I have so many mixed feelings. When the discussion, and I'll answer your question, but when the discussion came up with the Board of Supervisors about taking down the John Quincy Marr monument, I stood up and I said, I'm talking here as a history teacher, not as a history commissioner, but as a retired history teacher. And I said, to me, the most important thing is perspective. And I said, with the Civil War, there are three perspectives. They're the Union, Confederate, and the African American. They all have stories to tell. And I said, the one thing as I did as a teacher is that you have to teach that people make decisions and there may be consequences to those decisions. And I said, and I could tell that some of the supervisors were shocked. I said, you know, Lee and Jefferson Davis both lost their citizenship. And they probably were astonished, you know, I mean, they went fighting for what they believed in, and that probably never occurred to them. And being both, I mean, Lee had been a military man, and to think, you know, I can no longer vote in this country, you know, so, but that, so I hope I'm answering your questions. I have mixed feelings. I can't say, I mean, I don't want us to whitewash everything so that, you know, there's nothing there. How can you teach about the Civil War and not talk about both sides and why they felt the way they did? You know, you have to, just like, you know, you have a fight in the playground, you know, the teacher comes out and says, who started this and what is it about? Well, that's the same to me with the Civil War. You know, who started it? What is it about? And, you know, what are we going to do to fix it? You know, so I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yeah, it's confusing. It's, I think for, you know, like we learned history, as you know, back, you know, before it was a different way of learning history. And now we're
Right.
my children are learning it differently, but it was the same history, but it really wasn't. So
Right.
it's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Mary, there are some questions in the chat. What about the DC prison? Are you gathering the stories about it?
Are you talking about Lorton? Is that what they're talking about?
I think so.
Okay. There have been oral histories done by that Irma Clifton, who has passed away a couple of years ago, actually had prisoners do oral histories and stuff. Beyond that, I don't know any more than that. But I know that, you know, they are trying to gather not only the conditions, but the reform that was intended. You know, it was called a reformatory before it was a prison. And so it's being done, but I don't know what the product is going to be, you know, what they're going to do with the information that they're gathering.
Also in the chat, Teresa asks, is there an African American museum in Fairfax County? And Mary Payton does reference the Gum Springs Museum. Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, there is no African American museum in the county. And that's something, you know, there's no Fairfax County Museum. There's a Fairfax City Museum. There's no Fairfax County Museum. There's a lot that could be done to tell the stories around the county, which is one reason why these markers will help with that.
Well,
Thank
I
you,
was
Mary.
just wondering because Alexandria City, as small as it is, it does have an African American museum.
Right.
And it does have tours to show you the African American president in Alexandria City, the bike tour, where they advocated for where the children were buried. And they have a lot of work that they do to make sure that the presence is known, because we help, my ancestors helped build Alexandria City. So I was just wondering, because Fairfax County is larger, that's all.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot that could be done. And, you know, I would love for the Board of Supervisors to, you know, take a hint from our initiative and say, hey, you know, we need to capture all this information and spread the information. You know, Billy Lee, who was a servant to George Washington, is buried in an unmarked grave at Mount Vernon. Well, you know, I feel like that shouldn't be that way. You know, that they are working on the slave cemetery there, but a lot of them, they don't know their names. And so it's a really a sad situation.
Teresa referenced the tour in Alexandria. Shirley Ann asks, is there a tour offered that includes all historical places within Fairfax County?
No. I'm in the Burke Historical Society, and we have done little bus tours in Burke, and went out a little bit beyond Burke out to Fairfax Station and stuff. But to my knowledge, there are none. We tried to do one for the 275th Fairfax County birthday, and we didn't get enough people that wanted to take the tour. So no, we don't have anything that I know of.
Okay. Also in the chat, Crystal references that in close proximity in Alexandria, the Black History Museum is 902 Wythe Street. So that's in the chat. Christine includes a website referencing the Gum Springs Museum. Christine also references that the Lorton Historical Society is putting together a book that Irma initially started. And Crystal also adds West Ford is another story that should be told.
Oh, yes, I agree about that. Yes, yeah. And I tell myself, I've met a lot of people in doing this research that I had no idea. When I say met, I mean in doing research, discovered them, and we tell people what we put together is just the beginning. It cannot ever be finished, but that's why we encourage people, if they have family stories, they want to share, to reach out to us and at least get it onto this database. So it'll help with research.
Well, one more reference about Ron Chase,
Right.
having a lot of history in the Gum Springs Museum.
Right.
But I do not see any other questions or hands raised.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. And Christine is putting a few more links in the chat as well. So thank you, Christine. So please reference what's in the chat, and then if I get any more information, I'll make sure that I'll send that out to you guys when I send out the presentations after the session tonight. So thank you, Mary. We appreciate you and all the wonderful information. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And how do you retain all of that good stuff and put it all together? It's amazing. And I've seen you at work as I was initially on the subcommittee for the historical markers. So I've seen you in action. So you are very much appreciated. So
my dad was a historian, so I come by it naturally.
Oh, okay. All right. And Teresa, if you wanted to further get some more information on the Gum Spring, which is one of the oldest African-American community in Fairfax County, we have several Gum Springs Advisory Board members that are actually a part of the neighborhood college. And if you want some more information or to get some information from them as well, I'm pretty sure they would be open to talking to you in regards to what their role is on the advisory board. And they have a wealth of knowledge. They've been around here for quite a period of time. I won't say how long, but there's several on here that I know of personally that I'm pretty sure will be happy to share some information with you as well. So, all right. Thank you very much for everyone so far. Both Mary, thank you very much. And now we're going to move over to our next presentation, and that'll be with Ms. Katharine Ward. Are you still on with us? There you go. I see you. So Crystal will pull up the slides and you can go ahead and begin.
Hi, good evening. It's really a pleasure to chat with you all tonight. I do apologize for some of the technical difficulties. I'm having to do this on my phone. I'm Katharine Ward. I'm the co-chair of the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Associations, and I have lived in the area since 1985 and been involved in community activities once I retired from the military since 1997. So I want to talk to you briefly about the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Associations. I'm going to give you the history, the purpose, the structure, a couple of examples of what we've been involved in since we were started as an organization, how you can become a community member, and then ask for Q&A. Next slide, please. The Mount Vernon Council was formed in 1969 as a 501c4 nonprofit, nonpartisan citizens association organization in the Mount Vernon District of Fairfax County. But prior to that time, we actually, citizens started working in 1966 to revise the comprehensive plan. And why did they do this? They did it because concerned citizens felt the county was ignoring our area. We lacked adequate roads, buses, hospitals, police, schools, and there certainly was not a comprehensive plan. So 47 individuals pulled together the first draft of the Mount Vernon District's comprehensive plan after the county rejected the ones that the county staff had actually written. And ever since that time, 1966, we have been involved in the comprehensive plan process. So what's next slide? Oh, no, we're good. Yeah, bring me, excuse me, the next slide. Mount Vernon Council membership is an organization, as I said, it brings together civic, citizen, homeowner, condo, property owner associations and their community members to promote the interests of membership organizations and further the common good and general welfare of residents in the Mount Vernon Magisterial District. You know, it's kind of interesting listening to the other presenters because I noted there's a lot of similarities on what we're all engaged in, which is a good thing. So our structure is very simple. We have committees, we have a general counsel, and we have a board structure. Our committees develop at the areas of interest and pass those recommendations along via resolutions to our general counsel. Now, that's not a lawyer, that's the presidents of all of our member organizations. And those individuals make the final decision on our position on various issues. The co-chairs then forward that resolution with a cover letter to the appropriate agency. That could be federal, state, or local. And if required, we actually go and testify in front of the County Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. Our standing committees, per our bylaws, are Budget and Finance, Education, Environmental and Recreation, Health and Human Services, Planning, Zoning, Land Use, Public Safety, and Transportation. We also have special committees from time to time. The one that is active at the moment is on Stormwater Runoff. And if any of you, you certainly live in this general area, but if you live down near the river, the Fort Hunt area, you know what a problem we're having right now with stormwater runoff. We also have representatives that participate at the Southeast Fairfax Development Corporation level and the Fairfax Federation of Citizens Associations. As a matter of fact, Larry Green, one of your student members here, has now been appointed to be our representative to the Fairfax Federation. And Kathy Hosek, another one of your members, is our membership chair. The bottom line is we're a bottom-up organization. Our community members bring the issues at hand that they're concerned about that impact their community, their neighbors, things of that nature. And we talk to all the experts, people come into our committees, they discuss the issues, and then from there, our committee members put together the resolutions that go forward. Next slide. Our membership votes on who the board, the executive board is. The presidents of every membership organization, they appoint their representatives to our committees. The general counsel, as I mentioned, is made up of the presidents of those associations. The executive board is elected by the general counsel and consists of co-chairs, a treasurer, and a secretary. Next slide. We're a totally voluntary organization with the exception of our webmaster and the person that edits our record. We meet monthly on Zoom. both at the committee level, our board, and our general counsel. And we started that when the pandemic came, but we have found that because we have a lot of young families now moving into this area, that it's really very efficient to continue on Zoom, because you can not require them to have to drive somewhere to meet. So that's an excellent way to get things done. Our website provides our schedule of all our meetings. While we're open to the public, but because we are a membership organization, our members have the priority to speak. We publish a monthly The Record, which is our monthly newsletter. That includes all the minutes from the committees, the resolutions that we're going to be passing in the future, etc. And our website has the history. You can go in there, you can click on resolutions, and you can go back forever and see what did we get involved in and when and what was the result. Supervisor Stork joins our monthly meetings, and other elected officials, county staff, the Mount Vernon Planning Commissioner, state officials often attend our committee meetings and our general council meetings. Next slide, please. This list is just simply some of the things we've been involved in over the years. And I'm not going to read them to you. I'll give you a moment to glance over them. But they do cover a great deal, from traffic issues to environmental issues, to communications issues, to housing. You know, Mary Payton mentioned the need for more affordable housing. Well, quite some time ago, the county was interested at North Hill in just putting in, I believe the number was 67 trailer homes. Because there was an environmental problem with marine clay on that site, it would have cost close to $11 million to shore up the site. And we looked at that and said, wait a minute, for 67 families, why don't we make this for more families? So we worked very hard with everybody, all the stakeholders. And what you see being built at North Hill right now is a wonderful complex of affordable housing, as well as housing for those who can afford it. It also has senior housing in the affordable range, which is a wonderful thing. We don't have enough of that on the highway. We're also working with the National Park Service to make the George Washington Memorial Parkway safer. And we're working on safety improvements on the Richmond Highway regarding speed and getting the number of lanes that were originally recommended by VDOT cut down to something more manageable. VDOT had originally, for those of you who are not aware, was recommending 13, 12, and 11 lanes across. The Beltway is not even that wide. So why on earth would you take what's considered our main street in accordance with the county's comprehensive plan and make it wider than the Beltway? How do people get across it? It made no sense to us. So we're continuing to work with VDOT and Fairfax County Department of Transportation on that issue. And these are not on the slides, but I wanted to add them for you. There's a terrible backup of traffic that a lot of you may know about on Fort Hunt Road, Huntington Avenue, and Richmond Highway. We're now beginning to work with Virginia Department of Transportation on their study to expand the express lanes. But we're also working with the county to come up with some other opportunities to reduce that traffic backup. Next slide, please. Okay, bottom line is, this is your organization. How do you become a member if you choose to? Now, I looked at the list of participants in this, and I noticed that quite a few of the folks in your group are members of the Mount Vernon Council, not as individuals, but through their community associations. And remember, we are a community association organization. But if you're not organized and you'd like to join this group, because we get information right up front, very early, oftentimes before anybody else, so we can help everybody understand what's going on. All you need is 10 contiguous homes. You organize yourself with a board. It can be as simple as a president and a treasurer, You have a set of rules. We don't tell you what they have to be, but you need a little bit of operating rules. And you apply on our website for membership, and that's mvcca.org. And yes, we have dues because we have to pay our insurance, we have to pay our webmaster, and we have to pay our editor. So once again, the Mount Vernon Council is your membership organization. And I'm available to answer any questions. Next slide.
Okay.
And if you want to talk directly to me and ask any questions, my email address is there, co.chair1@mvcca.org. Sorry to rush through that, but thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Catherine. Kathy has her hand up.
Yeah, Catherine, I just wanted to elaborate a little on what you said. She's right. This council, I've been a member I'm the education chair as well as the membership chair. And we really do. We have speakers come into our meetings on Zoom and they talk to us about the budget. We have the actual budget chair for the Fairfax County Public Schools comes to our meeting and breaks it down for us. So if you have questions about what's going on, or you drive by and you're like, what are they building there? Mount Vernon CCA knows, and we've probably been talking about it since the builders came and asked to build whatever's going up. So if your community is not an association, I think Shirley Ann and I are going to do a presentation on this. This is our practicum. We're going to hopefully come up with a quick little like down and dirty, want to get involved, here's what you need to do, and make it really simple for you guys. If you have complex questions, definitely I defer to Catherine. But I definitely want to give kudos to this organization because they are very engaged and they really have protected our community from things that you don't even know were going to happen. They've stopped it before it happened. So I am forever grateful for them, and haven't been here as long as Catherine, but I'm right behind her in 89. But I shudder to think what this area would look like if it were not for this very active organization. So yeah, so please, if you have any questions, talk to Catherine while she's here. She's a very busy lady, but she'll take the time for you.
I do not see any questions in the chat, but I do want to point out, Kathy did place a couple of website links for Mount Vernon CCA and their activities. And Christine placed in the chat a link where you can check out Fairfax County and Housing and Community Development, North Hill. So I do see Bendu has her hand raised.
Hi, Catherine. I just saw you last night at the meeting.
Yeah, hi, Bendu.
I have a quick question to you. So you're making suggestions, like Kathy was saying, and like you were saying. How well are they received by by different people, and how do you feel like what you're doing, people are actually listening?
Well, I guess the bottom line is back in 2009, as I had on the chart, when the comprehensive plan, which certainly for those of you who are not familiar with it, it establishes, guidelines for 30 and 40 years out that speaks to what's our transportation policy, what's our housing policy, what are the zoning ordinances for various and sundry areas. Up until, frankly, since 1969, when we started this thing and we were very involved, then we ended up being relegated, we being the citizens, relegated to just listening to the developers who had most of the sway as to what the comp plan looked like. So in 2009, a small group of us involved in the Mount Vernon Council said, wait a minute, the comprehensive plan by guidance is the citizens plan. So why aren't the citizens involved? So we put a task force together internally, again, of our membership. We got the county staff to come and educate us on what's the latest state of play and how do we get involved in writing nominations to change the plan. We worked feverishly for 4 months. We nominated 7 changes along the highway, which covered everything from stormwater to transportation, again, to density and things of that nature. And 14 of our nominations were unanimously approved by the Planning Commission and by the Board of Supervisors. And those nominations from 2009 actually set the stage for what the current Embark plan looks like. So to answer that question, I think we do a lot of good. One of the other things they listened to us on, for those of you who are familiar with George Washington's River Farm, that happens to be located in Bindu's community and my personal community, our community, that was being sold off by their board of directors of the American Horticultural Society. That was a travesty. So the Mount Vernon Council got involved in that and helped push forward the historic overlay district that the Board of Supervisors approved. And we were instrumental in working with the Attorney Generals of DC and Virginia to ensure that the Board of Directors of the American Horticultural Society did not move forward with a sale that would have chopped up that beautiful land that is historic and turn it into 150 houses. So I think we're pretty good, but I want to state this very clearly. It's our members' organization. It's not the board's organization. It's not my organization. It is our membership's organization. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a good point, Catherine. And I'd also like to add, when an issue comes up, like the redistricting that just happened, in regards to the census and how the population changed, the Mount Vernon CCA was very agile and said, oh, this sounds important. We need and they formed a committee, and I helped with that committee. And we testified in front of the state. We looked at maps, we drew maps. We got really engaged with that. So they're very agile, but we need everybody's voice, because you may have something going on, and if the council doesn't know about it, they can't help you. But Catherine's right. It's very much a member-driven organization. So I highly recommend looking more into joining if you are not already a member association.
And let me add to that, if I might. My personal community, and again, where Bindu lives, back in the 70s, we were just about 300 individual homes. And the county was going to buy up some land that happens to be right up the street from where I live and turn it into a school. So a lot of people bought in that area so their children could go to that school. And then what happened was the county decided, nope, we're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is put in a 100-car park lighted recreation facility. Well, now all these people live backing up to that, and they go, wait a minute, we decided we wanted to be near a school, but now you're telling us we're not going to be in a school. So at that time, I didn't live here, but at that time, the people that did went to the county and said, we're not happy about this, fix it. And the county staff, again, that time in the 70s said, well, I'm real sorry, but you're not organized. And we listened to organizations. So 2 people went around within 4 months, organized into the Wellington Civic Association. And then we had standing as a community. So I'm saying this for those of you who live in neighborhoods, but you're not an organized community, that you might want to think about it. And then we had standing, and we actually stopped, my predecessors in my community stopped that from becoming a ball field. And now it's a wonderful county park with tennis and ball fields and things like that, but it's not lighted. So the neighbors aren't concerned about all the lights and the cars and things like that. It's a nice neighborhood park. And then of course we did join the Mount Vernon Council because we realized that we could get more bang for our buck, so to speak, by being part of a larger organization that does get listened to. And as I said, Supervisor Stork comes to our meetings.
Hey, Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I was going to say what Catherine is too humble to say, which is I've been the president of the Belhaven Citizens Association since, well, for a few years now, and just during my presidency have been part of the decision-making process that that MVCCA does. And they're incredibly influential. And I would recommend that anybody who lives in the neighborhood, as Katharine has said, organize and join this association, because I'm not sure they're 100% successful all the time, and that would be unrealistic. But we have issues here in my neighborhood that being part of this organization has helped amplify our voice and has helped us to register what my community, what my neighborhood needs to have registered in front of organizations that we would never have a voice in otherwise. So this is a great organization, but I think what Kat said that's most important, at least as far as I'm concerned, is if you are part of a neighborhood and you're not organized at this point, you really need to have a representation within your neighborhood. Take the initiative, do what she's recommended here, and join MVCCA, and you will find not only your voice being amplified into organizations that you otherwise wouldn't be, but you learn so much. The learning that you get from participating in some of these meetings is incredible. Listening to Supervisor Stork on a monthly basis is incredibly educational. And you really get to, one of the things that I do is I take from these meetings and report back to my neighborhood association, and they find it incredibly interesting and meaningful. So, Katharine is terrific. She's great at what she does. She's an incredible advocate for our area. And I can't say enough good things about what the organization does.
Well, thank you, Brian. That was very kind.
Just real quick, I wanted to point out that Christine put information in the chat about Mount Vernon CCA's counterpart in South County, the South County Federation. That's from Fort Belvoir down into Lorton, and there is a website link in the chat. And Larry, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Katharine, for that. I just want to piggyback off of Kathy and Brian and Bindu with their comments. I'm actually a member of MVCCA, and I've lived in the Mount Vernon area for not even a couple of years. And I'm one of those that fall in the category that Katharine was talking about as far as, needing to dial in through Zoom. I have career and young children, and I found that I was asked to join the Planning and Zoning Committee. And one of the things that was remarkable was the fact that I learned things about just going on in my local community that I didn't even know. So it kind of put things on the radar, things to watch out for. But most importantly was the ability to make a difference and be engaged and actually be a part of things that change and better the community. So I just want to reiterate that if you do have a career and family, young kids, that there are flexibilities and you can still serve and be engaged in the community and in MVCCA. So just wanted to add that in.
Thank you, Larry.
Another question in the chat, if you can able to answer this. How many neighborhoods are organized and members of Mount Vernon CCA versus how many are not organized? Mary Payton put that in the chat.
I'm sorry, would you ask that question again? Like I said, I've been having technical difficulties.
Yep, it might help to also read it in the chat. How many neighborhoods are organized and members of Mount Vernon CCA, as opposed to how many are not?
Well, I cannot tell you exactly how many communities exist within the Mount Vernon District of Fairfax County. However, I can tell you that we have approximately 15,000 households that are members, and that is constituted, depending on how you want to crunch the numbers, between 42 and 60 different community organizations. And the reason there's such a, I don't want to say it's a disparity, but for example, my community, Wellington, incorporates 3 other smaller entities that realized that they, only had 6 or 7 houses. Bindu lives in one of those over by the river. And so they joined us as a larger group, but they are a standalone entity. And if they wanted to vote in a different direction, they would tell our president of our community that. And then Mount Vernon Civic, which is down towards Yacht Haven, that area, they themselves have within their larger organization, again, somewhere around 10 or 12 smaller entities that they support. So again, it's depending on how you count the numbers, but that's about what it is. We work, and Kathy Hosek is now going to have to start doing that task, but we work with both Supervisor Stork's office as well as the Public Relations Office of the county once a year to get the most updated list of citizen organizations, homeowner and condo and property owner associations. The problem is that the county records of all of these things are voluntary. So if an organization hasn't filled out the form with the county, nobody knows they exist. So that's one of the other problematic issues. And that's why we're so thankful we have a membership chair now who is going to be walking the streets, so to speak, and working with those of you on this call to say, where do you live? Are you organized? Can we help you? If you want to join, here's what you do. Now, when Lorton Prison closed and the Lorton area started to develop in a tremendous way, they split off from us and created the South County Federation of Citizens Associations. So if you are part of that Lorton area, then you may want to join their organization as opposed to ours, or you can join both. There's nothing that says you cannot. And we take care of different issues. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And if you have any further questions, you guys, please feel free to put it in the chat, or you can email Kathy directly so that way she can answer any questions you have. Thank you so much for your time and your wonderful presentation. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I'm going to sign off because I have to be at an infill meeting. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, moving right along so we can, because I know we're almost at the 8 o'clock and we have 2 more things to go over. It's a lot of jam-packed information, I know. But Ivana, you're up next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about Community Plus. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Ivana Escobar, and I'm the Director of Collective Impact. Next slide, please. So today we have a tight agenda. I'm just going to quickly just discuss what does it mean to do collective impact, and then the history of Community Plus, as well as a few of our community leadership pipelines and neighborhood ambassadors, and close it up with our working groups. Thank you. So what is collective impact? So for those who don't know what collective impact is, it's and this is the main definition, but I always like to abbreviate it in layman's terms because a lot of these words are very logical. I say that, collective impact is a group of people working together to solve a mission. So for us, one of the things that we do with collective impact surrounding Community Plus, we are working together to make the Route 1 corridor a little bit better than how we have it. We see the changes are coming and we want to have the community members involved as well as other stakeholders like the county, other NGOs, faith-based. We want to have everyone at the table when the changes are coming. Next slide, please. So we have created Community Plus. As you guys can see, the model that we have on the side, but Community Plus is a diverse group representing the 2 census tracts in the Southeast Fairfax County. So it's 4215 as well as 4216. And with their allies of, like I mentioned earlier, government, nonprofits, funding institutions, and more. We have centered 5 working groups. As you guys can see, our 5 working groups are health, economic opportunity, neighborhood livability, safety, children and youth well-being. And within those 5 working groups, one of the things that we do is to create a space and destroy silos to act collectively to end multi-generational poverty around the Route 1 corridor. Next slide, please. So I created them in Spanish, and I know, Katina, you're going to pass them out. So we can go next slide, please. So the backbone of our Community Plus is United Community. For those who don't know, United Community was founded in 1969 as United Community Ministry. We have changed now our name to just United Community. We are now the leading nonprofit agency in the Southern Western Fairfax County, and our mission is to empower our neighbors to transform their lives and end multi-generational poverty. Next slide, please. So Collective Impact, it originally started in 2018 when United Community decided to take this mission on. It was first originated with the name of Communities of Opportunity. Once that conversation started, one of the things that we realized was that there's also another initiative within the county that's called Communities of Opportunity. And we realized that we need to change the name so people can understand what Community Plus is, or the work that Community Plus is doing, as well as the difference what the county was doing. If you move forward to 2021, we created the name Community Plus. The reason why we have the name Community Plus is because, and this was chosen by the community. They said that they wanted something that basically represented them. So we have the word community, as well as one for the Route 1 corridor, and plus because anyone is open and welcome at the table. In 2019, I'm going to go back, we had our neighborhood ambassadors. This is in partnership with Opportunity Neighborhood, involved in from helping community members to navigating the local system and working around the services that we have done. So one of the things that we saw in 2019, of course, the pandemic, we had our neighborhood ambassadors be very active in the community and go to food distributions and help assist, as well as provide services to families in need. In 2020, that's when we created the formations of the 5 working groups that I highlighted, and that was created because of the INOVA community health assessment. Once that assessment came out, a lot of people realized that the common themes were, like I mentioned earlier, safety, health, economic opportunity, children and youth well-being, and the last one is neighborhood livability, and that's the 5 working groups. One of the things that we still have right now, as you guys can see, we have preparing the table meetings, as well as allyship meetings that are held. They're still being held, but we had them before we started our work. One of the reasons why we had preparing the table meetings was we realized that a lot of people didn't understand what it meant to do collective impact work. So we created something called preparing the table. Let's prepare the table. Let's get everybody on the same page on what we're doing. Similar to that, we have our allyship meetings, which are similar, but it's a safe space for people to talk about this work that we're doing with the community. It's a space where community members can also highlight what we can do better and how the county can also, interact with them. Because a lot of the time this is new and some of us are not used to this kind of work. In 2022, we had our first retreat, and that was really the launch of the working groups. We had everybody align with each other and start figuring out where they fit best and where their superpower can really shine. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier Opportunity Neighborhood. So Opportunity Neighborhood Mount Vernon, for those who don't know, is an organized framework of residents, community-based partners, Fairfax County Public Schools, Fairfax County, and other supports and allies working together to deliver needed resources that are equitable, access, and effective for youth and families within the Mount Vernon community. The one that we have here in Mount Vernon, it's the first Opportunity Neighborhood. We have it now spread out. We're slowly being spread, but we have some in Harridan, Reston, Bailey's, and Annandale. And what's great about Opportunity Neighborhood is that it really does empower community members, and we have them called ambassadors, really go out to the community and provide the service. When I say service, we don't do any programming. We really just pass out information. We try to be the connection from the community to the county or any other service provider. One of the things that I love is that they really do tell us what's going on and what the community needs, as well as the other side. When we go to county meetings, they tell us, this is what we're hearing. Can you ask them, is this also correct? So it's an interactional conversation. And that's one thing that you guys can see here on the side. We have 2 community members. We have our community strategy manager, Christy, and Jolanda, who was with us before. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. One of the things that we do now is we have something that we're calling lived experience consultants. And those are the community members who have gone through this pipeline of becoming community navigators to community ambassadors to now being lived experience consultants. When you are a lived experience consultant, you have gone through the training that you need to become a facilitator, but you're also getting paid for that work. You're getting paid to be at the table, to speak up when you are in these working groups, as well as other tasks that you may be assigned, but you are being paid. And one of the things that we love is that you work with the community. We work specifically with the community and try to create initiatives from the community itself. Next slide. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, lived experience consultants, they do represent the community voice. They provide their perspectives and engage with other community members. We also had them prior to, we had them go to a 6-session training with Youth Facilitate that was completely free, that helped them prepare to become facilitators, as well as help them be in the back and also learn how to do agendas, as well as learn how to, think about how to do a retrospective at the end and think about what they can do better. And that really has helped them become where they are now. We have some community members who are now group co-chairs for our working groups, and they're really shining and taking what they learn and using it as their own. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Our working groups. So right now, like I mentioned, we have the 5 working groups. Right now, everybody's still in the starting stage. Like I said, we started in February and we're only meeting, some of us are meeting once a month or twice a month, but that's still, there's so much you have to do. And one of the things we're realizing is that to identify the common agenda, it's harder than it seems, especially when you have groups like neighborhood livability. What does that mean? It's so big. So right now, one of the things that we are doing is we're trying to have people organically try to have these conversations. We're trying to figure out what does it mean and what can we do? But we also know that's not a race. So our groups right now are being organically developed. They're also being organically formed. And we're also getting new community members on some meetings coming up. So we have to catch them up, as well as we're getting county folks, so we have to catch them up. But one of the things that I love is that all these working groups right now, they really are being interactional, and they're at the point that they're also thinking of how can I work with one another? How can the health work with the safety? So one of the things that we do hope is at the end that everybody starts working together. Next slide. Oh, one more before that. So as you guys can see here within our working groups, you guys see, we do have a facilitation team, which usually is someone from the county, someone from the community, as well as someone from nonprofit. Some of our working groups right now, they don't have a nonprofit entity as being the facilitation team, but they do have a community member, which is what we really want. And all of them eventually, they pick one to be in our steering committee. Those are really going to be the people that are going to make the decisions that is going to change with the work that we do within Community Plus. Next slide. And that's it. Any questions? Hopefully I'm right on time. I was trying to rush.
I do not see any questions in the chat or any hands raised. If anyone would like to speak
There
up.
is-
Oh, well,
there
Kathy.
is-
Yeah, I see Kathy's hands. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a question. So when you have the little different communities, we were talking, Allison from United Community, we're going to talk about this at our Ventures in Community meeting next Wednesday. And I heard the word education pop up and I'm like, wait a minute, how do I get involved? So I don't live in any of these communities, and they, Allison told us they're open to the public, but I would love to even just sit and listen to what these communities' concerns are about education. I think it was like family and youth services or something was the
Yes.
overall umbrella.
Mhm.
And Allison said she'd get us the information on how to join them. But can you tell a little bit about what happens in one of these meetings? I know they're organic, but do they have like agendas, or do they just come together and talk? How does that look?
Yeah, so the group that Allison was highlighting, it's a children and youth well-being. So I would say yes, and I will put my email on the chat. And so one of the things that we are seeing is that the groups, they do have an agenda. So right now, one of the main themes is trying to find what we're calling the North Star of what is your big ambiguous goal that you want to do within that group. Because a lot of, we do have a lot of power in the groups. And when I say power, I say we have a lot of deputy directors. We have people that can do a lot of change. So we're trying to encourage the community, and as well as everybody at the table, saying, what is the big change that you want? In 5 years, what do you want to see? So right now, for the past few months, a lot of them have been just trying to figure out, what does that mean? And what are some quick wins, as well as what is our big win? I know we have some that are kind of on the road already. I'll highlight like the safety working group. They are right now doing surveys, and for them, it's one of the things that they're thinking of is the top-down approach of, let's figure out first, what does the community want in regards to safety? And then let's figure out what is our North Star. So everybody's really working organically, but everybody's trying to really figure out what are they going to do.
Okay, and I saw you had a nonprofit bubble in those little groups. What are those county nonprofits that are involved with you guys?
Yeah, so some of them are, so then some of them are like the Audubon Natural Society. Right now we are really just trying to get as many people at the table as possible that are interested. So like I said, I will put my email, so feel free to reach out, just because I know that this is the work that you guys are doing. So why not replicate it? Why not work together?
Love it. Okay, thank you.
The question in the chat, Ivana, is this the same group Yolanda was leading?
Yes, it was. It is.
Thank you.
And Ivana, you have a couple of people on this meeting tonight who are participants of Neighborhood College that were on the original Opportunity Neighborhood Governance Council. We have 2 people on here that was a part of the council. And I'm pretty sure, which we've been trying to do before with some other community organizers, is continue to hear their stories, kind of like what Mary Lipsy said. Let's continue the stories of their experience and their history of knowledge of what they did during their tenure as they were on the governance council. So it will be probably a good referral to reach out to those individuals, and I can share that information with you as well.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, awesome. Thank you, Ivana. You had a few more minutes. You didn't need to rush. I didn't want to make you feel too bad because I know you were going through it. So
it's okay.
You did a great job. Thank you. I appreciate you. And if anyone else wants to get in more information about Community Plus, again, it's open to everyone. The 5 different work groups have been diligently trying to get the ball rolling, and we definitely want more community voices. So if you are interested, please feel free to reach out to Yvonne, and she can give you some more information on more specifics in regards to Community Plus, and of course the Opportunity Neighborhood Framework as well. All right, next we have, again, we've been trying to do a community engagement and leadership development series, and this is the last one of that series. It's number 4, and I have the pleasure of inviting one of our NCS regional managers to come tonight to present. Most of you don't know, we had our agency retreat today, so a lot of us have been moving and hustling and bustling since early this morning. But nevertheless, the class must go on. So we appreciate you for joining us tonight, and I appreciate Norma for agreeing to come on to talk about tips, community outreach to diverse communities. So Norma, if you're ready.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Many of the tips that I'm going to present to you tonight have already been said in previous presentations tonight, as well as pre-presentation and other evenings. So this will be a good wrap up for tonight. The first tip that I would have in the list of 14 is introspection. Explore and identify your own implicit biases or stereotypes by taking implicit association tests or through other means. Whenever you're going to do community outreach in any community or community engagement in a community, you need to first be clear or aware of what biases, negative biases you have towards that community, because that will get, with negative biases, you are guaranteed that you will fail at your engagement and outreach efforts, because people will know immediately and sense what negative views of their religion, of their race, of their socioeconomic background, of their history, of the culture that you bring to that place. Second is understanding. Collect data about diverse communities to maximize your understanding of their demographic, history, culture, values, norms, outcomes. Religion and identity is known as culture, social networks, political structures, and as well conduct a map, community asset map. It's one thing to do, and I know that Letitia earlier and a few evenings ago presented the principles of Fairfax County Inclusive Community Engagement Framework. And one of those principles was being data-driven. But I also know that Katina presented the asset mapping technique, which is looking at a community from a asset-based perspective, as opposed to a deficit perspective. So you need to combine the demographic information, the community profile of a community, but also look at the community themselves and see what they bring. Be sensitive to what they bring to the table, not always thinking that everything that you need in order to engage or do outreach must come from the outside, as if the inside of that community doesn't have enough resources in order to do the work that you want to do with them. The other thing is purpose. Be clear on why you want to do community outreach. Is the goal to inform or to consult or to get people involved? And I think Letitia talked about that very clearly when she talked about the framework. You need to be very clear of what is the level of engagement or the level of outreach that you want to work with that community, because that involves many things. It involves your promise to that community, the expectations that you set from your end, as well as the expectations that you expect them in their roles and responsibility. And it also helps you decide what kind of methods are you going to use that are appropriate for that community that will work in your engagement outreach process. Relationships, and we talked a lot about this in many of the presentations before. Taking time to build relationship and trust is one of the fundamental principles of community outreach and engagement. Lived experience and knowledge shared through storytelling is a powerful catalyst for connecting people to each other and places. Again, we talked about building trust and being authentic and building relationships. In order to do that, you need to listen to the stories, to the lived experience of the community that you want to do outreach with, that you want to engage. You have to be there with them and create that space. The other thing is, and we talked about, a lot of associations, civic associations. So there we go with leaders. Set up meetings with community leaders and talk about ways to collaborate. And that was mentioned earlier this evening. Look at who the leaders are in that community. Talk to them. Find out what are the issues in that community. Not only issues, but also the opportunity. The first way of doing that is to look at the leadership in that community and see what they're doing and how you can engage with them and collaborate with them. The other tip is partners. And this goes back to very similar to leadership, which is partnering and collaborate with cultural and other organizations to learn from their wisdom and leverage their relationship and trust with the communities they serve. Of course, going to a community, you need those partnerships in order to be able to broker those relations so you can enter that community, to understand that community, and to be clear about your implicit biases of that community, because that's a checking point for you as you work in those partnerships. And the thing also, participate, identify and attend community meetings, events, and activities to build connections, demonstrate commitment, and build visibility. If you really want to get to know a community, you got to be in the community. And you don't have to necessarily be there, but you got to be a part of that community some way, somehow, so that they see you and they see that your interest in them is genuine. So then that connection, again, building that relationship and building that trust comes from being there with them. The other thing is, and this was spoken about earlier in the presentation, about making presentations. Reach out to key community groups and ask if they can present at a meeting. Learn about what different groups in your community are doing and increase awareness of the existence and value of diverse community voices. In other words, again, ask them, reach out, not only to make a presentation to you, but also listen to their present, see what really is of interest to them. What's motivating them? What is the driving force in that community of the things that they want to work on that are important to them, whether it's protecting that historical land, right? Or whether to create a program for early childhood education. The other thing another tip is about events, holding cultural and recreational activities and events with food provide opportunities to connect with community members, offer giveaways and free services to attract participants, door knocking, evening and weekends to learn about residents such as older adults, individuals with special needs, and youth. And that's about knowing really your audience, so that if you're going to have an event in a community, and you're going to obviously reach out to the community organizations and the leaders and create partnerships before you do that, that event has to be specifically geared to that particular segment of the population of that community. So you're not going to have the kind of music or activities when you're targeting youth as opposed to targeting older adults. So that sensitivity and that specificness of your targeting of your event and activities is important, because that's, again, another way to reach out. Materials, I think that was said, and I saw that Ivana had, gracias and thank you in Spanish, bilingual. Materials, you need to ensure your materials are culturally and language specific to effectively reach out to different ethnic and racial groups with your community. These include print materials such as flyers, brochure, postcards, and fact sheets. I think I'm stating the obvious here. If you're trying to reach a community whose first language is Spanish, it's best for you to prepare the materials in Spanish. The other thing too is if you're facilitating and trying to communicate with that community, it probably best that you do that in Spanish. If not, get yourself an interpreter that can help you communicate better, and they can then in turn communicate better with you to identify any issues and concerns, or whether they want to give you some feedback on a program, a policy, or a project. Communication, which is also another principles of the Fairfax County Inclusive Community Engagement. What types of messages or information do you need to communicate to reach your audience groups? Consider what communication methods, channels are most appropriate for each message, audience and situation. Social media, for instance, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, advertisement, radio, TV, website, blogs, emails, and public displays. Public display, I'm sure that must have been mentioned before. Public display is a method by which you try to inform a community about a program, policy, or project. But when you do that, you have to think about what is the best way to reach that community. Do I put the display in a library? Or do I provide that display in a community center? Or do I take that display to a community event that is culturally based? Or do I bring the display to a community complex and a neighborhood event there in order to reach out to that community? The other thing is spaces. Be prepared to address fears and distrust among diverse communities by creating safe, welcoming, and accessible spaces. And we mean accessible, we mean physical, psychological, emotional, for dialogue that is account for different perspectives. Listen with an open mind. That's when you do facilitation, the role of a facilitator is to be able to create that space so that the wisdom and the creativity of that community emerges in order to address problems, take advantage of opportunities to connect. The other thing is gifts, and that comes back to the asset mapping, and that goes back to the asset-based community development model, which is everyone has gifts. With rare exceptions, people can contribute and want to contribute. Gifts must be discovered. Gifts giving opportunities must be offered. There is unrecognized capacity and assets in every community. Find it. And that's a very important thing. You have to look at what are the skills, the lived experience, the history, the cultural assets of that community. And again, not knowing that is a disadvantage to you and to that community as you do community outreach or engagement. And that is very important. And we have a very famous exercise that we do with communities, icebreaker, that is about gifts, about the head, the heart, and the hands. And the last and not least is care. People care about something. Agencies and neighborhood groups often complain about apathy. Apathy is a sign of bad listening. People in communities are motivated to act. The challenge is to discover their motivation to act. And this goes back again to the work that we do as facilitators and as community developers. You know, when you're listening to a group of people tell their story, you talked about telling their story and listening to them, listening about the issues and concern. One of the things you have to use is what we call emotional intelligence. And there are 3 pieces, and one of the most important elements of emotional intelligence is empathy. You have to have empathy for the community that you're trying to reach and connect with. And there are 3 types of empathy. There's cognitive empathy, which means your ability to understand another person's perspective. That's where the listening comes in, to meet them where they are. They want to be heard, appreciated, and seen. The other thing is emotional empathy. That means you're able to feel what they're feeling. And that helps you make that connection. And the third empathy is an empathetic concern, meaning you sense the needs. As they tell their story, as they speak, as they make their presentation, as they talk about their community, you need to sense what those needs are so that you can work with that community, whether it's doing the community outreach or community engagement or informing them about a program.
Thank you, Norma. That was awesome. Thank you. Wonderful tips for everyone to take back or to reflect. You'll get a copy of this as well. I did see one little typo, but I won't tell you if you didn't catch it. Oh, well, but I saw it. So, but you hit on a lot of, key things. And I know a lot of the participants in this neighborhood college are very active members, and there are some who want to become active. And I hope that, there was some nuggets in there for each and every one of you to reflect on and possibly take back to your group or in your safe spaces of conversations to be able to help move the work forward that you're interested in. So thank you, I appreciate that. As we're winding down, we have 2 announcements, and then we're going to let you go tonight, as promised, before 8:30 tonight. I didn't promise you, but I'm promising it now. So, so Letishma has one announcement, and then I have a final announcement.
Oh, so I just wanted to mention that next week, unfortunately, I'll be out of town, so I won't be able to join the neighborhood college, but I am definitely looking forward to rejoining you and seeing you in person the following week for the presentation. So I'm pretty sure Katina is going to hold it down, and we'll have some wonderful presentation with transportation as usual, but I'll definitely see you the week after on the 9th for the final ceremony. All right, Katina.
Thank you, Letishma, and bring us back some goodies. I think we have 27 of us.
Okay.
That we could put into their swag bag.
Okay.
So, and thank you, Shirley. Shirley says Supervisor Stork's office has an information center that includes documents from other agencies, as well as documents created by his office staff that are available in both English and Spanish. The information center is available 7 days a week, and it's available in several languages. So please take advantage of that. As Shirley has put that in the chat. Crystal, you can stop sharing the slides. I appreciate it. I just want to see everyone's wonderful faces before we dismiss tonight. So hopefully you received some valuable information tonight. Thank you all for those of you who joined. And I do want to just make mention, because I know some of you were not able to join exactly at 6:30, but we have secured a space for our practicum presentation, our graduation recognition, acknowledgement, participation ceremony will be held at original Mount Vernon High School, which is, I will send that information out to you all, and we will be utilizing the multi-purpose room there. It is on the second floor. However, there is a ramp and it is has elevators, so it is accessible for those who need assistance. We expect everyone hopefully to be there. Hopefully we can see you all in person as we've been meeting in virtually. I will be sending out an email. If you can just please respond back to confirm that you will be attending. Unfortunately, we will only be able to have staff and our presenters. We are inviting all of our presenters back as well as yourselves. So we are limited on spacing, but we hope that everyone will be able to participate and have you do your practicum in person along with Supervisor Stork's staff will be there as well. But when I send the email, please respond back because I have to get a count for food and your swag bags and your notebooks and other goodies that we will have for you. So make sure you do not miss the email and respond back to me so that I don't have to keep hounding you about emails like, okay, did you respond back? So I just want to make sure that you all, thank you, Miss, look at there. See, I love our wonderful group. They are so efficient. And she put that in the, Ms. Deborah Graves Sanders put that in the email in regards to the address. So I will be sending out an email, if not tomorrow, by Monday, in regards to, if you can confirm in regards to your attendance for the last session, which will be our practicum presentation, okay? So don't miss out, all right? Don't miss out. Don't be short. If you don't respond back, and if you show up, I might not have food for you. You know what I'm saying? Everyone will get a piece of the pie, so I promise. All right, and it looks like Miss Helen has some audio tonight, so I appreciate you, Miss Helen. Teresa was able to join us. I know there's some technical difficulties and a few other people, so I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great evening, and have a great evening, and I will see you all next week.
Hi, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Katina, Katina, can you send me another link, please, in the
Yes,
email?
I will. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a Zoom. Zoom has been doing crazy things. It's really a Zoom. It's not me.
I finally got on.
Yeah. Miss Maddie got on tonight, and I'm happy to see you, Miss Maddie.
Happy to see you.
Yeah, it's taking 15 to 20 minutes. I'm like,
I know.
Let me text her. What is going
Me
on?
too.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
I appreciate y'all your patience. Yanni, if you're driving or walking, you're never sitting still. So
I'm walking.
I know.
Always doing 20
Hi,
things
Yanni.
at one time.
all right, you guys have a good evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
God bless you. Stay safe.
And the recording just stopped.
Can you? Yes, please.
Crystal, you stopped the recording?